Good morning. Welcome back to the Care Report podcast, talking about all things related to cybersecurity and cyber liability. With me as a special guest today, it's Erik Boemann. Erik Boemann is a technology executive and lawyer. He represents Merability. Good morning to you, Erik.
Thanks for having me here.
Erik, I know we're going to get right into it, but talking about some of the things we do from the care report assessment side, there are a lot of deficiencies and maturity that are lacking amongst our clients. And I want to talk to you about actually two parts. The first today is data governance and how it relies on security. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like the way you characterize that as kind of it's a maturity issue because data governance often is that, right? We find that we have a lot of data that we have been collecting over all these years, and we don't necessarily know where it is, what it is, or who even has access to it. And so that the idea that we're going to build a program to understand all those things, right, to answer those questions becomes a key part of that data governance, basically the foundation. But you heard me say who has access to it, right? Because it's also a security issue. How do we, who can access it? What can, should they be able to access it? Do we know if they're accessing it? Like in healthcare, you have to know not only who can access it, but if they're accessing it. So all these sort of security concerns come in at the same time. And so you really are, it might be a parallel path between like your data team and your security team, but it is the same path that they have to be walking down together.
So can you give me an example of, let me phrase this, how the lack of security controls undermined the data governance initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the easy example again is access to that data, right? Because so often we'll build this giant data warehouse. It's filled with all of this amazing data, and then we forget to put the security around it. We forget to limit it, and now people are basically able to access in the short data that they shouldn't be able to. But perhaps that's financial data about the company that you don't want that is proprietary or reserved for executives. Perhaps it's payroll information, right? That often gets in these business databases, and again, you don't want the full company having access to that. There's so many examples where we, in the order to make the business more efficient, to understand our data better, to make data-driven decisions, right? We feed that into these different data warehouses, different data, modeling engines, but then we forget to put the guardrails up, and that creates some sort of leakage, right? But hopefully it's just internal, we can catch it, but also if we're working with third-party partners or if we're working with even a cloud provider, we forget to put the right security on it, right? Then it can become a public leak, and at that point, we have all sorts of trouble with that data.
So that's kind of determining really strong data governance really enables that privacy outcome, especially when it comes to things as simple as payroll. And we know that's also a big phishing scheme today as well. If you don't have that in place, that's an opportunity for bad actors to come in. So where does somebody start? If you're a small company growing to a mid-sized company, they know that they need to mature their model. What things should they be looking for, and what can you help them with?
The best place, and almost always have to start with, what data do you have? Where is it? How's it being stored? Who's in charge of storing it there? Is it a partner? Is it an employee? Getting that, you call it data catalog if you want, whatever you want to call it. What does that look like? Where does the data live? Who has access to it? Who controls it today? Is it on a thumb drive? Is it on somebody's desktop computer? Is it on a laptop and they just flew to Florida? All these sort of things that we see in the real world with companies, you got to understand where that data is, who's responsible for it, and create that, again, a catalog of what there is. And then we can start to that next step where we start figuring out now how sensitive is it? How do we label it? How do we classify it? How do we protect it? Right? Those steps come, but you can't do any of that if you don't know what you have or where it is.
So I heard you speak at a conference not too long ago, and you asked a great question, so I'm going to ask it again for other people. It really stuck with me. So how often should a company take a look at their governance and their policies?
If you are already mature, we like to say once a year or when something changes, right? Like if you acquire a new system, well, that's a great time. If you get acquired, if you buy a company, whatever change, whenever there's an actual change, you always have to do it then. Otherwise, you can kind of do it once a year And to quickly add, change can include external changes too, right? A regulatory change, a market change. Maybe your competitor got hacked and all their data is out there. That's not a bad time to come back and look at yours. That's if you're already mature, you're already doing it. If you're not, then you're going to have to do it a little bit more frequently just to build up that strength and that capability. So you're probably looking at, again, it's probably more iterative at that point as well. Like don't start with start the end goal in mind, but don't try to accomplish the end goal in the first pass, right? Take a quarterly approach, figure out what you can do in a quarter, do that well, then the next quarter, so that you're starting to build that practice up, because it really is a strength exercise. So think of it the way you would, use any sort of exercise. Do it in a way that you're building that capability, and then you can switch to that kind of lower pace where it's more maintenance at that point.
So we just finished an assessment about a month or so ago, and it was a growing company. We knew them a couple years ago as just a small, mom and pop, forgive me, a boutique shop. Now they're a mid-sized company. Now they're getting global. So what are your thoughts on some of the regulations like GDPR and CCPA, and how does somebody get involved and mature those areas?
Yeah, I think that's another area where there's a concept called privacy by design, right? And if you can start with those concepts early on, it's going to make the challenges that those regulations provide much, much easier. If you haven't started that way, then you'll be doing more work later because you'll have more data, you'll have more exposure. If you already are thinking about a lot of what we've been talking about, like who has the data, where is it stored, how's it accessed, those kind of fundamentals from the beginning, GDPR, CCPA is much, much easier. But the other part of that is those are complex regulations. There's basic concepts that are pretty simple, and you can look at the data rights, the citizen data rights, for example, in GDPR. Those are good things to start with, but you almost always are, at the scale that you're talking about, going to have to bring in external help as well to navigate exactly where you have to be compliant with, who you have to be compliant with, what subset of your data. The other thing too, at that scale, it's almost easier to find the strictest regulation and meet it, and then that way you've got everything else covered. So if you are in California, US, Brazil, and Europe, probably aim for a GDPR level compliance, because the rest should work out if you've done that level.
That's great. So Erik, I know that you're key to the table. My last question for you, who should be at the table when discussing data governance and better privacy?
Obviously, the answer depends on the organization and how they've divided things up, but you've got to have representatives of the business, obviously, because the data drives the business. If they're not there, then it's kind of an empty conversation. You got to have some sort of regulatory representation, because privacy is effectively legal regulation. You've got to have IT, whether that's the people running the systems. It might include your cybersecurity. It might not. That, again, depends on your company, but security as well. So if you're looking at it from legal, business, the actual systems, and then the protection of that systems, you have a pretty good perspective. Now, and of course, that's where I say it depends, right? Because you also may have a group that, like a data science group, you may have an AI group, for example, in today's world. These groups also are going to be at that table if you have them. But those four are the ones you have to make sure that you're having the right conversation.
And someone like yourself, you're really the intermediary between all those groups, making sure that they're communicating. Is that correct?
So I almost describe myself as a translator, because I have the legal background and the technical background. I've built data warehouses and I've written contracts. So translating between legal code and software code is one of the things that I would do with that. Absolutely.
So Erik, if somebody wanted to get a hold of your services, where do they go to find you?
So my website is Mirability, www.mirability.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, very active there. ErikBoemanns. There's only one of me on LinkedIn, so that's easy to find if you get that spelling. Happy to have a conversation either through the website or through LinkedIn.
So Erik, one last thing. I'd love to have you on again and love to talk to you more about artificial intelligence, AI, or machine learning, and talk to you about governance on that.
Exactly. We just answered that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time today. We care, and so should you. Thanks very much, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.